technology changes because of the environment they're in. If the weather changes and you eat one type of deer, the weather changes, kills this particular plant, and all the deer die. What are you going to do for food? Well, you're going to need to take down something bigger. You'll learn that the spear point you've been using on the deer is not going to work on a water buffalo.
Or
So
a
you
woolly
take the
mammoth.
principle of the spear and you go, well, this works. What do we have to do to make it work on this? It gets
Right.
bigger. It's so the technology, the way technology evolves is necessity. What's the saying? Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Right.
Um, Humans, evolution is kind of the same thing when you look at how animals exist across the planet. Not just hominids, but all of them. You look at a landscape, you look at an ecosystem, and you have a giant apex predator, a crocodile. There's no crocodiles in North America, but there's an alligator. The two are so similar, yet so different, but they fill the same niche in the ecosystem.
I
That
think they
is.
have let some loose in South Florida, and they've started.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Invasive species are a thing. Hey, they might move in and drive the North American alligator extinct
Facts.
because they don't have the environmental pressures on them. Um, the evolution of people changes because the landscape changes. The the Sahara used to be a green jungle, right? And all of our ancestors lived in the trees. Well, there's a shift in the earth, culture or climate change happens in some way. All those trees start to thin out. Well, the ancient human ancestors that were more geared to being in the trees, they're not going to survive very long in a place where there's no trees or thin trees. So the hominid ancestors that have taken to the bipedal walking a little bit and have expanded their range because they're on the ground walking, suddenly have this leg up. And you see in the archaeological record or the anthropological record where they become prominent, and this other species does not continue because the environment changes.
So
Because,
you start seeing things fall off as the earth is shifting and
yeah,
changing.
woolly mammoths and modern elephants.
Yeah.
You know, woolly mammoths lived in a world where at the glacial maximum it was really, really, really cold. They died off because of a rather rapid shift, and we're talking thousands of years, not just overnight, but thousands of years. You have this shift to where the environment's no longer feasible for a
Under the
woolly
ice age.
mammoth. But the Asian elephant and the African elephant are, and at that time period there would have been the North African elephant as well.
Hmm.
You have they're just a little bit better tuned for the changes, and they're able to. There's a book I will send you. I will send it. It's called Other Lands. I so recommend it because it talks a lot about the evolutionary stuff that you really want to chew on. It talks about how there's mammals that ate from the trees, and then there were mammals that ate grass, and then there was that mammal that existed in the middle that ate both. Well, when the trees died out or thinned out or became scarce, suddenly all of the mammals that solely ate trees were in trouble. And the ones that ate grass survived because the grasslands took over. And the ones that could eat both trees and grass, well, they just started eating grass.
Right.
So
You're
you
fine.
see those changes, go through. If it doesn't remain viable, nature doesn't have it keep going. Hominids, as we move along, because I know people say, well, if we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? Because there's a place in the environment in the ecosystem and everything for those creatures to continue. They do not fill the same role ecosystem that we do.
Exactly.
Our ancestors, like Neanderthals and the Denisovans and stuff, you know, they were in place for a very long time.
Longer
Shifts
than
in
us.
culture, or yeah, longer than us. Shifts in the environment. Shifts in in their food sources, stuff like that. And then you can have multiples of a creature, multiples of a species. Humans evolved because all the things came together leading up to, this particular thing, this particular mixture of the genetic numbers game. And we were talking about your great grandfather is one of the Appalachian Blue people.
Mhm.
It is a fluke of genetics
Right.
that, one in a million shot that would one in a billion shot that particular genetic pattern would combine to result in a person that has a blue pigment to their skin. What if suddenly there's an event that favors the blue pigment? What if
Yeah.
suddenly, if we're on this still very primitive, all we do is eat, sleep, reproduce, the surviving or the more survivable mate, male or female, is going to be the survivor. So yes, you want that. You want the surviving genetic thing.
It's why the
So
polar bears are intermingling with grizzly bears right now.
yep, there's such a massive climate change
Hmm.
that the polar bears are having stress on their environment and on stress on them, so they are doing the next best thing.
They're breeding to
Eventually there will
survive.
be no polar bears.
Exactly.
There will be hybrids, and the hybrids will eventually just breed the genetically pure. And I hate using genetically pure because it leads to all sorts of other connotations.
Right.
But it kind of turns the valve off on that hose. If you think of a giant water network, you turn the valve off slowly to that hose, and eventually there's no more water running through that hose. That's
Yeah.
because this didn't work. Um, when you like in reference to how humans evolved and moved into the other continents where they came in contact and conflict with, like the Neanderthals or the Denisovans or all of the other hominids that existed. Humans as we are today, we appear about 200,000 years ago.
Yeah.
We were probably around a little bit earlier, but those fossils have not survived. Take your pick. We didn't just appear, though. There was a line of hominids that were probably more like Neanderthals that they're just geared to what we look like. Our
Yes.
evolution, our physical state is more adaptable than a Neanderthal or a Denisovan or whatever. So just like any situation where you move into an area, there's a conflict for resources, there's a conflict for territory, and you have the simple war, the simple driving off of, and if a population can't care for itself because it doesn't have resources, it goes extinct. Going to
And
break
gets
into
bred
another
out.
analogy here. Yeah, and gets bred out because there is signs that there is genetic evidence that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens crossbred.
Right.
That's fine. You know, um, going on another like
Especially
analogy
because back
tangent.
then it wouldn't have been a Homo sapien that looked like me and you.
Oh,
Not
it would
necessarily.
have been well,
Yes and no.
well. That's yes and no. Certain features, depending on where you are in the world, and we can get into this in a second, will come and go based on the needs to survive in that environment.